All right, Erin. So to start off, tell us about the schools you went to.
Like starting from elementary school?
Yeah.
I went to 2 elementary schools in South Carolina. One was called Ballantyne and the other one was Oak Point. And then I moved out here and I went to Eagle Crest and then Altona and then Silver Creek. So right down the line.
Do you have a lot of memories of South Carolina?
More or less, just like little tidbits. Like, do you want me to just elaborate?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I remember one day my brother, there's a big pond in our backyard, and so my brother and I would just walk around it and like find the weirdest things. Like one day we found a vine that was just hanging from a tree. So we thought it would be a great idea to just pull the vine back to this pile of wood and climb all the way to the top and then swing around on the vine. That was a great idea until it snapped, and of course I was the one who was on it, and it went down pretty hard, but it was fun. The only other thing I remember really is that we would go to this place called the Riverbank Zoo. It was like a really small local zoo that we had, and there were hollering monkeys there. It was pretty funny because my brother and I would stand there next to like the hollering monkeys, and he would make like the sound of them, and they'd be silent. And then as soon as he would make the sound, it would just like erupt in a bunch of hollering monkey sounds. Yeah, it was crazy. So random. Okay.
Do you? I mean, you have some memories, but do you remember having a tough time transitioning from South Carolina to Colorado?
At first I remember it was kind of tough to like make friends, just because I thought that a lot of people when I moved out here were really, really close. Like they'd all grown up together, so I was like, oh, I'm like the only new kid on the block. But after a little while, it wasn't that bad.
What year were you in when you moved?
I was in 4th grade, and it was kind of nice because we were in the portables outside of Eagle Crest, and I was only like integrated into 2 classes instead of being in the actual school and being a little overwhelmed with the amount of new people.
During your time here at Silver Creek, what I most know you for is the golf name that you've made for yourself. Why golf? That's such an obscure sport to strive to be great at.
Yeah. On my dad's side, they've always played golf, and when I was a kid, I would do like the little camps here and there. But once I moved out here, our neighbor really pushed us. She was like, oh, to do something over the summer, you can go to the little golf camp. So I would do it, and honestly, I would do it just to get the lunch afterwards. I was one of those kids who was motivated by food. But after a while, the head pro at Twin Peaks Golf Course was like, hey, you could actually be pretty good at this. Like, I'd love it if you would actually put in some more time and get private lessons, that sort of thing. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And in 8th grade, I took a few lessons here and there. 9th grade, I honestly like kept it on the down low that I played golf because I was like embarrassed about it. It was so funny. So hardly anyone knew that I even played golf freshman year. And then after that, I was cut from playing at the state tournament freshman year, and I knew that I was good enough to make it, but I just didn't play that well that day, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to let this happen again. So that entire summer, I think I took 1 day off during the whole summer, and every single other day I was out at the golf course practicing. And so, I don't know, that was like the one driving force, I think, was that the day that I was cut from state.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things, for the most part, people here do a lot of team sports like football and basketball, those sorts of things, dance. But you are one of the unique people who plays an individual sport, and oftentimes that can be discredited because it's easier, because you don't have to deal with people, but it can also oftentimes be much harder. What's been your take on playing an individual sport versus, say, a team sport like basketball?
What I really enjoy about an individual sport is the fact that I can control what happens, for the most part. You can always control attitude and effort, and so if I put in my maximum amount of effort and have a good attitude about it, then I feel like I can, like, practically accomplish anything. And of course, there's going to be those days where you don't play well, especially in golf. Like, you're always going to be humbled. But I'd say that the best part about an individual sport is that you can control how much you put into it, whereas a team sport, everyone has to put in that same amount of work. So I feel like it's not as, I don't know, it's just a lot harder as a team to accomplish something because you have a bunch of different factors to it. But at the same time, like, it's an individual sport, so you're kind of on your own. If you don't do well, then it's all on you. That's the biggest thing. It's like the days where you go out and have a crappy round. It's like, well, that's what happened, so it's all on me, and I could have done this, or I could have done this instead, but I didn't, and so that's why I did terrible. So, yeah.
What would you say was your most? I mean, you talked about the day that you got cut and that motivated you, but what was your most? What was the most memorable moment you had while doing golf?
I'd say probably the most memorable moment was the day I qualified for the U.S. Women's Amateur, because it is like, it's considered to be, not to like build myself up or anything,
No,
but it's considered to be like the biggest tournament to qualify for as an amateur. So, like, before you decide to take money to play golf, like before you get paid to play golf, and I remember it's like so like in depth just because I was playing like lights out. I think I hit 2 pins that day, and I'd never like done that in a tournament before, and so it really showed how dialed in my game was that day, and I couldn't believe I was qualifying for it because there was one girl in particular who was from Florida, and she was this guy named David Ledbetter is a huge he's like a really, really well-known golf teacher, and his daughter was flown out from Florida to play here because we're considered to have less competition, and she didn't even qualify for it, and I was like blown away that she's like a year or two older than me, and she didn't even qualify, but I did. I was like, oh, okay.
We'll get away from golf now. In your senior year of high school, for a lot of people, oftentimes is the most memorable because of just the fact that you're almost done. It's this huge buildup. You've been working really hard. Usually people are a lot more relaxed with you because you don't have to do so much anymore. Yeah. You've already done everything you can do at that point. So what was your most memorable moment this senior year?
I'd say one of the most memorable was one day in journalism. We were just sitting there, and I don't know how a roundhouse kick came up, but Miss Holtz was just like, or Elizabeth was sitting right next to me, and she's like, I don't know what a roundhouse kick is. And Miss Holtz was like, oh, don't worry, I can show you guys what it looks like. We just looked over at each other and were like, what did she just say? Like, she's actually going to show us how to do a roundhouse kick. And she starts, like, pushing the tables out of the way, and she does it for us, and we're just like, I can't believe she just did a roundhouse kick for us in journalism. And especially, like, Miss Holtz, I don't know, she just doesn't come across as that kind of person. And then she told us, she's like, oh, yeah, I have a double black belt or something like that. Like, something with a black belt. Yes, Miss Holtz. And so Elizabeth and I were just looking at each other like, what? Like, the lady who teaches AP Literature and loves to talk about books, and I don't know, I think she's into knitting from what I've been told. I'm not just positive. It was a shock. We were just like, I can't believe she just showed us a roundhouse kick. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
What about we as a class? We're pretty lively. We get rambunctious at times. So whenever we get put together and we're forced into like a confined space, like an assembly or something like that, oftentimes something's gonna happen, whether they're expecting it or not. Do you have any memories of that happening?
Oh, God. Well, just recently at the pep assembly, we were all it was crazy loud in the gym, and all the winter sports got up and were talking about all the accomplishments they've had and what they're looking forward to in the season, that sort of stuff.
Sure.
And then Cole Eckert just popped up and stood at the edge of the line, or at the end of the line, and once he got the microphone, he's like, "Yeah, sports!" And everyone just erupted in, like, applause and cheers, and we're just like, oh. I bet if anyone else would have gotten up there, they probably wouldn't have cheered as loud, but I don't know.
What do you and your friends usually do after school when you're not playing golf or studying or whatever?
I don't know. When it's warm outside, we really like to go on hikes. Like, during the summer, it's a lot easier, but, I don't know. I just learned how to swim like an actual swimmer. Strokes.
Okay.
I know how to swim, but, like, Tara taught me how to do, like, a front stroke and a breaststroke, and she showed me how to do a butterfly, but
you still don't know how to do it?
That's ridiculous.
Not even, you don't even have to answer this in terms of something that happened in high school, unless it did happen in high school. This question is definitely harder to answer just because you're trying to define your whole life into this one moment. What would you say was your most defining moment up to this point?
Oh my God. Jeez, Hunter.
I think you can handle the question.
I don't know. Most defining moment?
And it's not usually something very big.
Yeah.
It can be something very, very small that just sort of summarizes what you've been through and how you cope and things like that.
Well, that's tough. I don't know.
If you want, we can skip it if you can't answer.
What? Can we get...
We can come back.
Okay.
We can come back. After high school, what are you looking to do?
Well, I'm going to go attend the University of Wyoming and play golf there.
Oh, that's right. You committed just recently.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that, but after those 4 years, I'm looking at either majoring in broadcast journalism or sports psychology. That's what I'm looking at now. It could definitely change, but that's just kind of what I've been interested in. And then I think after those 4 years, I want to be able to have a decision to make between trying to make it on the pro tour for golf or pursuing a career in the realm of broadcast journalism or sports psychology.
Mm-hmm. Well, why? What drove you to want to study that?
Broadcast journalism is just something that's always been sort of interesting to me. I don't know. Being in front of the camera hasn't been that difficult for me, and I feel like I'm relatively well-spoken. So, and I really like to catch up on news, that kind of stuff. And I just was like, one day I was just sitting on my couch and I was watching the news and I was like, I could do that. One of those days, I could do that.
You seem to be doing perfectly fine with this camera.
I mean, it's not too hard for me. I know some people get really camera shy, and that doesn't happen too much.
Well, then why broadcast journalism? Why not something else, like acting?
Just because I've never had any experience in the acting realm. I've never done plays or rehearsed that way, I guess. And I like the idea of having something different every day.
Mm-hmm. So,
like, every day you show up and you present about a certain thing, whatever the topics are that day, and then you go home. Like, that just seems fun to me. I don't know.
Did you ever have an interest in participating in drama or anything like that?
I think I did quite a bit as a kid. Just because, like, in elementary and middle school, I was really involved, actually, in choir, and I played the piano, that sort of stuff. But it just kind of dropped off. I got more into sports. I don't know why, but that's just what I was pushed towards.
Right.
But I was always, I don't know, when we would go see the plays and stuff, I was like, that would be fun. Like, I could see myself being up there, but now I'm just kind of like, I don't know how they memorize all those lines.
It's incredible. Did you even ever try? Did you even ever, like, audition for a play or anything?
And not for plays and stuff. I remember, this is really sad, but when I was in middle school, I was in choir, and I auditioned for, I think, every single solo. I didn't get a single
Really?
one. So I guess that says something about my musical abilities. I don't know.
Miss Peterson never gave you a solo?
No, never. And I didn't even get into the group solos, like when they had a little small group.
Sure, yeah.
It's like, oh, great, thanks.
So we'll try again with this question.
Okay.
Throughout your entire life, and I understand this is tough because it's one point in all of the 18, 17 years we've been here. People have a hard time with this question. What has been your most defining moment?
Oh, boy.
It could even just be what was your most memorable moment, not just in high school, and then talk about what you learned from that.
I know I talk about golf a lot, but
That's
probably
okay.
going to talk about that again. I'd probably say that it is, once again, like the day that I was cut from state, just because the 2 weeks after that, I think I was just kind of moping around. I was like, this sucks. Like, I can't believe I'm not there. And there are these, I remember looking at the state tournament, like, scores, and I'm like, I'm so much better than those girls. Like, why are they there and not me? And then at one point it just, like, clicked, and I was like, you know what? Stop moping around and get off of your butt and make a difference so that you could do it next year. And I think that's just been one of the major defining moments, because I feel like I really value hard work ethic, and I worked hard before then. Like, I remember for volleyball I would go to all the open gyms kind of thing, but I'd never worked that hard before in my life. So I'd say that was probably my biggest, or like one of the most defining moments.
All right. Well, to close out, you talked about the sort of accountability that comes from playing an individual sport. Going into the adult world and being a part of the working force, how important do you think it is that you have now learned this sense of accountability, and how do you plan to transition that into more of a team-focused news organization type of job?
I'd say making sure that I'm doing my part, and making sure that every single piece that I'm responsible for I get done, so that the entire news station is productive, I guess. Because I know that, like, if you have one missing piece in the puzzle, it all falls apart. So making sure that I'm doing my part and really really putting in the effort. I guess that's all I have to say about that. I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you, Erin. I guess I'll see you around.
Sounds good.